Welcome to the Health Science Podcast, sponsored by the National Health Association. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, and today I'm really grateful and delighted to have as my guest Paige Parsons Roache, who is a self-described vegan eco-activist, but very centered in being the communications director of Unchained TV. And we've had Jane Velez-Mitchell on here, and we are real big fans of Unchained TV. And also the co-host and co-founder of Plant-Based in the Burbz, which is a vegan cooking show and lifestyle brand. And we're going to get into all of that. Yes, we're going to touch all of that. As we start, and Paige, welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us. Welcome to the Health Science Podcast, brought to you by the National Health Association, the oldest organization in the world championing the extraordinary benefits of a whole plant food diet and healthy lifestyle, as well as water-only fasting. We believe that health results from healthful living and focus on evidence-based science that promotes the health of you and your loved ones, as well as the health of all animals and the environment. We feature experts from a cross-section of disciplines within the plant nutrition, vegan, psychological, environmental, and animal compassion sectors. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, the NHA's Director of Health Education.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes. So to get people into a little understanding of what kind of shaped where you are, you know, all of us in our own lives, we have people, events, families, sometimes health conditions that shape, you know, our early stages of our path. So I'm going to throw out a few things that I picked from your bio and reading about you, and you kind of weave the tapestry of how this kind of shaped where you are or what led to where you are. And that, of course, began with, I noticed that you had an issue with losing your brother very early in your life, which led to a little bit of a spiritual path through the agape kind of unconditional love movement. And then your own daughter turning into a vegan when she was in her early teenage years, and then being affected by the atrocities in movies like Cowspiracy. So kind of weave those pieces together for how that kind of laid a little bit of the groundwork for what became, Paige Roache.
Thank you so much. So I did keep Parsons. That's my birth name, and Roache is my married name. So I do go by Paige Parsons Roache. Just FYI, you can find me on the socials there as well. So thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, definitely my brother's tragic passing when he was 20 and I was just 19, and his mental wellness and his chemical imbalance is what caused him to take his own life, actually. And those that are touched by that in your own life, I feel for you as well. It led me to really seek out information about how our food can affect our mental wellness. So that was the first thing. So raising two children, I paid attention. I have paid attention. Now they're in their 20s. But paid attention to what kind of chemicals they were eating, the dyes and the additives and things like that, even before I had gone vegan 9 years ago. So when my 13-year-old came home and brought information about veganism, I thought to myself, okay, what am I going to make her? First of all, she's this, a brain developing 13-year-old girl. And I have at the time, my son was 15 and a sports aficionado, playing lacrosse, running around town, really needing his protein and not having a lot of nutrition understanding, given I was, raised on the standard, American diet. I essentially really was clueless. I was basically like, what do I feed these kids and how do I, make different foods for my husband and my son and my daughter and me in the middle there. So I got curious about how to feed my daughter, omegas and protein and nutrients and calcium for her growing mind, body, and spirit. And then I sat down and watched the movie Cowspiracy. Now, I'm an eco-vegan, meaning eco as an environmental and sustainability person for 25 years. And I was at the time walking around with a basket, going to a lot of events and things full of sustainable items like bamboo straws and utensils and reusable bags, and really on the Ban the Bag of California, which became an initiative, as well as replacing plastic straws with metal or glass straws. So I was already in the world of change for a better planet. So when I saw Cowspiracy, it made sense to me, given I have spent a large portion of my life in the state of California in a drought mindset. Save water, turn off, short showers, turn off your water. We were even given the heads up to not water our lawns and in the neighborhood. So we turned everything to a sustainable type, drought tolerant environment in our front yard, in our backyard, and in the neighborhood. So when I saw Cowspiracy and I saw the amount of water that goes into making a burger, meaning what goes into making a burger happen for me to eat that, right? Or an ice cream, because mostly I wasn't eating meat. I was eating fish and I would have dairy. So those was kind of more pescatarian. But still, when I realized the amount of water, because I never thought about it, I never thought about the fact that a cow, a female cow, needs to be impregnated to become a mother, to then give birth to a baby, to then provide milk for the baby that then we use as humans. And all of that didn't make sense, but I made 2 and 2 because I nursed my children and I knew how thirsty I was. Drinking a lot of water. So absolutely. I started thinking about the billions of people on this planet, the mother cows needing to drink a lot of water. And then Cowspiracy told me it was gallons and gallons of football fields for me to get a little lick of ice cream, right? Or just a slice of cheese on a sandwich, like a grilled cheese. And I thought, wait a minute. Okay, so there are these nut and plant foods that I can eat that are made, like cheese made from nuts? What? Or like milk made from seeds, like hemp seeds, macadamia nuts? I like, whoa. And already eating a lot of vegetables anyways. Once I learned that, goodness, broccoli has more protein than beef. And with protein, like nutrients, chickpeas over chicken, I started to think, it started to blow my mind. And, I can get all the nutrients that I need from plants that I thought I needed from fish. And what is happening with the oceans? Like, whoa, it just blew me away, because here I was saving turtles from getting plastic straws stuck in their noses, if you've seen the video, or, animals, fish eating plastics, right? But I would eat the sushi of fish. So it kind of all was mind-blowing for me. So I became an information content provider via Unchained TV, which was Jane Unchained at the time. And for 7 years, helped develop programming, produce programming, and so forth. Now I do special projects. I've let that communications director role sort of meld into lots of other things. And this is my life's purpose, really. Now, I didn't know. And what I know, I didn't know. Many others don't know. And when you don't know, you just do what you do, what you think works, or what you think is working, because a lot of the commercials are telling us, just continue to eat animals. It's okay. Maybe just reduce a little to a billion people on the planet, multiple people, right? A little bit goes a long way. However, if you just give a little, you're still eating a lot. You see?
So when you had that realization, did you go, excuse the pun, did you go cold turkey and stop everything like pronto, or how was your transition? Because we have an audience of people where many times you're reaching people where they're at, and we all probably in the early stages do the best we can for making these incredible life changes. So did you go when you had that realization that you were getting from the movie and from the things around you and looking at the atrocities and the injustices and the violence connected to those industries, were you able to make a clean break, or were you still kind of having to go up and down a little bit in that dance?
I went up and down a little bit until I literally said, October 1st, I'm going vegan. So it was just a couple of days. I say I went vegan overnight, but honestly, I needed my spicy tuna roll, all you can eat, because I felt privileged enough to be able to go do that.
Right.
And I wasn't really making the connection to the animals suffering at all. Like, I didn't do this for the animal suffering. I did this because I saw the eco connection. And I also really looked at my daughter who was sitting on the couch with me watching the film. And I thought, I have been working towards creating a better planet, or at least sustain the planet that I'm on, not F it up anymore, right? Not mess it up anymore if I can. And once I learned this, I'm like, I would be a hypocrite knowing this information, for me, a walking hypocrite, to continue the practices, knowing the information I got from that film. So I just was like, I've got to change. And I went for one more all you can eat. And listen, trust me, along the way, that first maybe 1 to 2 years, I wasn't necessarily reading all the labels. I learned to read the labels and flip it over and look to see, because they have to list in the United States the allergies, and the allergens are dairy, eggs, right? And any those products. So when you flip it around and you look straight on the ingredients list, you can go to where it's bold and it will say dairy or eggs. And then that's not a product I'm going to eat. What else can I go for? And so I've become a much better cook. I'm going to tell you that. I've learned to work with lentils, chickpeas, so many nuts and seeds to make milks and cheeses and things like that. And so I like to say not cold turkey, but I like to say delicious tofu overnight.
All right, we're gonna get there. Let me just take a very short break because we want to hear from our sponsor, the National Health Association. I'm here with Paige Parsons Roache, and we're from Plant-Based in the Burbz, and we're going to get into a little bit of a deeper discussion of this incredible vegan lifestyle. So let's have a few words from our sponsor, the National Health Association, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the NHA Health Science Podcast. Dr. Frank Sabatino here. Are you ready for an extraordinary adventure that combines relaxation, exploration, and vibrant health? Then set your sails for the NHA plant-exclusive cruises. Imagine cruising through exotic destinations, savoring delectable plant-based cuisine, and engaging in rejuvenating activities, all while surrounded by like-minded individuals passionate about health and wellness. These cruises offer more than just a vacation. They offer an opportunity to immerse yourself in the NHA's principles of healthy living. And they rank incredibly high on the ratings of eco-friendly cruise lines. We all know how important our oceans are, and our cruise partner, Windstar, is fully committed to this. Join us aboard our upcoming plant-exclusive cruises and experience the synergy of health and leisure. Delight in gourmet, SOS-free meals prepared by talented chefs. Attend informative workshops and enjoy the serenity of the sea, all tailored to nourish your body, mind, and spirit. For more details and to reserve your spot on our next adventure, visit healthscience.org and click the link under travel. Don't miss this chance to indulge in a wellness retreat like no other. Elevate your well-being and make memories that will last a lifetime. And remember, your feedback matters. Please take a moment to leave a rating and a review wherever you're listening to the NHA Health Science Podcast. I'm Dr. Frank Sabatino, your host. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Health Science Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, and my delightful and special guest today's Paige Parsons Roache. So, it's so funny because you bring up that protein issue. This has been one of the biggest con jobs and the most atrocious, unconscionable approaches in the history of biology, giving people this idea that the only way they can satisfy their very important protein needs is by decimating animals around them. And of course, when you look at it, the largest land mammals on planet Earth with the largest muscle masses are all strict vegan animals. People don't realize an elephant only has 3% body fat, and it can weigh as much as 10 to 15,000 pounds. So think about that muscle mass being maintained on greens and plants. And the idea that you can't maintain a 100 to 200 pound body on the protein in plants is pretty absurd. So as you got turned on to this, and I feel that you got turned on and you started getting involved with doing wonderful things in the kitchen and sampling and kind of trying out these new things with lentils and beans and tofu and all these options, that led to you having another connection that you alluded to, and that was getting connected with presenting some of that chefing on Unchained TV with Jane Velez. So I'm assuming that had a very big influence on the next stages of your life in terms of activism and your journey. So talk about how that evolved into you being connected with Unchained TV, because I think that's got to be an amazing story in itself.
It really is. We were on, Jane was on stage with John Sally, the NBA basketball player.
Yeah.
Former player, and they were talking at a Veg Fest, and I was all about banning plastic straws. And so John Sally, I said, hey, do you know about this? And he goes, come on up and tell the thousands of people. And so I did, and that was like my first stage moment. And when I got off the stage, this woman approached me and she said, we would love to have you on our lunch break live show. And I said, I have no idea what that is, but call me on Monday. So she did. And she said, how about Wednesday? And I'm like, Wednesday, I'm available. So she drove out to the Valley, and we had this live cooking show where I can't even remember what I made. Oh, I made a rama bowl, which was layered food with rice on the bottom. And then it made it so pretty, and all different types of yummy foods, and raw and cooked. And Lisa Carlin is her name. And so then I said, I know some people that this might be great for them to be on the show, this lunch break live show, which was a daily cooking show live on Facebook Live before Instagram existed, before StreamYard existed, before all these things existed. We're talking, this was 8 years ago. And next thing you know, I'm sitting in Jane's kitchen making her something. And she says, what are you up to? And I said, well, let's see, I've got some freedom and I want to make a difference. She said, how would you like to start booking for this lunch break live show? And the next thing you know, we're producing the shows together. We're traveling all over. We're having fun. It was a 7 days a week live show, 12:30 p.m. Pacific every day. Then you have a lockdown. Now we're doing it virtual, and we make it work. And then the next thing you know, I become the communications director. Oh, by the way, there was an Amazon Prime show that we produced called New Day, New Chef. It's on its 4th season. You can get it on Amazon Prime, or you can get it on Unchained TV, which is a free global streaming network that you can actually get the app on your phone, which is so cool. You can also stream it on your TV, on your computer, Unchained TV. So next thing you know, Sherry and I are guests on the Lunch Break Live show. And we knew each other because a little side gig of Paige's was teaching at the gym, group fit classes. And Sherry was a trainer. So she became my trainer. We were doing kickboxing at 5 a.m. And then we started cooking together. And to be honest with you, Sherry's a way better chef than me. She really dials in like creativity. And the next thing you know, the Unchained TV channel is the host of our 8 short cooking segments, which are super easy recipes. They're like 6-7 minutes long, and everything's really dial in, and all the recipes are available, and you can watch and be entertained and have some fun. But we also have a presence on Instagram. We do an Instagram Live once a week, and we feature different folks in the plant-based space and vegan space, and we give them like a moment to share their journey, tell us what legacy they want to leave. And it's really inspiring. We've had some great guests like Tracy McWhorter and so many. We've been doing it for. We've been doing
fantastic. What I liked about it when I read about that brand, I liked the idea that your mentality basically was, if we can do it, you can do it, and it left people with this. And you talked about even creating errors in the kitchen, dropping this like we all do, and so it becomes so relatable to people. And I think that's what it has to be, because I
Yeah.
think sometimes when you see influencers or people that are educating, and I've done this for close to 50 years. So the bottom line is, people I think sometimes think you live in some kind of ivory tower and you're not dealing with families and all the stuff that we deal with in life, when in fact your brand is showing that, yes, these are normal people living lives that are dealing with all the stresses of life. And if we can do it, you can do it. And here's how you can do it. And I love that. I love that mentality. And I think that's a tremendous influence on the way people can think and act and embrace this. Beautiful. I think it's fantastic.
We started this Instagram live show. We called it What's in Your Bag? And we basically opened up our purses and our makeup bags and started showing people all the cruelty-free vegan items that we both use on a regular. So it was fun because we just circled back almost 3 years later, because we've been doing this Instagram live show for 3 years. And we did one recently, and we were so fun to see our bag, like Elf products and like local Johnny Concert or Gloss Girl, and all these local brands that we've been supporting too, the both of us, and then bigger brands like Elf, like I said, and Mink, and things that you can get like at Sephora,
Right.
I think an international beauty shop. And, you basically just ask for the vegan cruelty-free items and ask wherever you are, where can I find those? And pretty much, I'm going to say if it's a larger, shop, you might be able to find that. But we're committed down to, the wardrobe. We're committed to educating people all the elements of how to have a cruelty-free, eco-vegan lifestyle.
Well, in the context of that, I know that you're uplifting people. You're bringing communities and organizations together that are highlighting this path of veganism, this lifestyle that goes way beyond a diet. And we know that because it is a philosophy of social and economic justice, as well as a process of doing no harm, as much as it is a spiritual practice, understanding the consequences of what we do and how it impacts things around us. And I know part of your mantra, and link this together for people out here, you talk about this idea of collaboration, communication, and the mindset of abundance. I love that little mantra of pieces. Can you share that with the audience, how that becomes your kind of part of a working model for how you bring people and organizations together?
I feel like everyone who, there's a message that could fit someone. So my goal as a media, I was raised in the media world from college on. That was my major, was mass media communications, is how do I then tailor a message so that it can reach you? And that's not necessarily going to look like this woman here. It's going to look like someone who's a lot younger, or someone who's of, whatever race, color, creed, background, neighborhood. So how do I now feature and vocalize with them and give them a platform and an opportunity to share their message of their journey and how they've brought this vegan lifestyle to their lives and their families? So everything I do, for real, down to like the minute, is how am I connecting others and how are we going to collaborate? I do not see it as a competition at all. I do not get my ego involved. I pull it out and say, how can I even be more giving and more generous? And a lot of times, most of the stuff that I do, and I thank my husband and his career, because I chose to stay at home with the children, and then I became an activist about 10 years ago. And so I have these like side hustles, that help contribute to both of our children completing college, and, the things that we do socially, things like that. But I'm graced and grateful to my husband and his career that has been able to sustain me to have this opportunity to be the person that I am. So I do a lot of going out to events, and I see people and I say, oh, bam, they need to know each other, and I
Right,
hang
right.
out with all ages. I have friends that are 20s. I have friends in their 80s, and I see these connections and I help make them, because to me, that's like exciting. I love being the plug. I love being the one that can bring them together so that they go out and they do a podcast together, or they create an event together, or they have a foundation or a charity or an organization, and now they're developing something together. So lots of joy in bringing people together.
Yeah,
And
I want to come back to that point, but before we do that, let people know where they can find you, Paige. What's the location where they can learn more about you, learn more about what you're doing, get involved with what you're doing?
well, I'll show you this, plant-based in the Burbz with the Z. So you can find that we have a website and all the socials. And then also, this is me, Paige Parsons Roache. So you can find me on LinkedIn, social media, X, all the places. Not hard to find me, and I'm available. So, I want people to know that I have some knowledge of how to maybe work with the media and things like that, or even formulate your message. So if you would like a consultation with me, just to have a half an hour, if you're, challenged, or you're ready to take something to the next level and you just want to bounce it off me, I'm open to it. So reach out to me in my DMs or via, these folks. I'm an open book. My email is available. It might go into spam and junk because that's been happening, but pagepr@msn.com. Super simple. Haven't changed it in years. And you can always reach out on the socials as well. And hopefully I'll receive it and we can connect that way. So yeah, I'm open.
Paige, I want to touch on something that this lifestyle had such a positive impact on your life in a way that I think is important for much of our audience and many of our younger people. As you know, a lot of the angst of what's going on has affected the younger population in a way where we see even more mental health issues. We're seeing things more with anxiety and depression. And you have talked very openly about the fact that this was a thread that kind of ran through your family. And that as much as you are such an optimistic, really effervescent person, you've had to deal and deal with the dark days of your own life, and that this lifestyle had a huge impact on helping you have some real good positive control over those events and those days. Can you speak to how the power of this way of living and how it impacted even that very elusive mental health that some people are so struggling to maintain?
Do y'all know that the most antibiotics are put in the animals that we eat? Think about that. That's a lot of chemicals going into our bodies. There's no way that stuff can be, pushed out before we consume it. So that to me makes me think, I was consuming that. Okay, that's number one. So those chemicals. Number two, animals don't want to die. They just don't. If you hang out with animals, including your own companion animals, right? They have a will to live. They have a want. They have their own lives. They have their own desires. The same thing goes for chickens, pigs, cows, turkeys, sheep, fish. When you watch those fish interact as schools of fish like Nemo, the real deal, I put the mask on and I was snorkeling after I'd already gone vegan. And I was convinced fish really didn't matter, or like I didn't get the sentience of a fish. It didn't occur to me until I was snorkeling and I saw little fish go this way, his buddy come and get him, bring him back. They coming back, and they all were together. Went, what? And I've hung out now with chickens and cows and sheep. So the death of those animals and the vibration, I'm going to say that karma, we're ingesting that. We are ingesting that. So whether you believe any of that woo-woo, you think it's woo-woo or whatever, chemically, I think the animals are full of it. And sadly, and we impregnate these animals and we put them into these very stressful situations. And so chemicals and stress on them. So once I went vegan, honestly, I'm not kidding you. It's crazy. It was like overnight. I did not have the dark days that I used to have. What I have had is where I'm crying and I'm sad. Like I get sad sometimes or frustrated. Very different. It's not a no hope situation. There was no hope kind of feelings before. And I think mental wellness is something that we are still learning, but I believe there are a lot of supports, way more than, 40 years ago when my brother took his life. That was really hard because you couldn't even say suicide or take your life or mental unwellness or anything. Like people were not going for therapy support and appointments.
Right.
There wasn't very much medication. It was mostly like maybe Valium or something. So he didn't have the support. I'm all about support. I'm all about get what you need. If you need to be on the medication, by all means, support yourself. Get what you need and take care of yourself. And how you can do that? Because really, we only have one body. We only have one chance here right now that I know about. And we have one vessel to get us through. So why not do our best to take care of our best? And I believe plants are the answer to that. And some people have said to me, like I had somebody over the weekend say, okay, vegan food is too processed. I go with plant-based. Okay. Here's the thing about plant-based. You can pick something off the shelf and it's going to say plant-based. You flip it around. It's got dairy and it's got eggs. The plant-based marketing has hijacked the words plant-based. So vegan food is not processed, all of it. Okay, there is processed food. Everything that gets put into a package is processed, y'all. So you buy some rice, guess what? It's processed. You buy, canned tomatoes, it's processed. So there's a marketing machine pushing that veganism is this processed, unhealthy food, blah, 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 that gets into our minds just like we thought the standard American diet was the way to go because we were pushed all that messaging. Milk does a body good. No, it doesn't. Plant milk does. We're not a baby cow. We're not designed to drink milk. We are not. Our bodies are not. So what I want to say about this is do your research. You don't have to trust me. I mean, hopefully you're hearing some of this and it's landing for you that you will then go do your research. Find out, how can you make a nut milk? Where can you find the most unprocessed vegan food? Guess what? It's fresh, whole foods, meaning it's nuts, grains, seeds, vegetables, fruits, and then figure out how to cook it all or find your local places to go eat that you feel comfortable with. I eat out on a regular. I'm not going to lie, because where I make money, I spend it so I can keep these restaurants open. So I'll meet people who are pre-vegans at restaurants locally. I have about 4 or 5 right here in my neighborhood, thankfully. And those that don't have access, I got you. That's where you're going to learn to cook the food. And that's where you're going to want to go onto Unchained TV and watch the thousands of videos, not just ours, but there's tons of cooking videos. And maybe you'll resonate with someone else. Maybe, you watch 1 or 2 of ours and you're like, okay, let me see who else has what. Go for it. I'm not saying you got to.
Yeah, that's why many people have they've ostracized what I call the V word. You'll find that virtually none of the plant-based doctors will even use the word vegan because it has been bastardized to be related to foods that are not whole and plant exclusive, as you made the point. And so the point is being well made. Oreo cookies are vegan. We don't want to eat Oreo cookies. So the bottom line is you do have to have a little bit of an understanding that we're addressing this idea of working with whole foods in as much of a natural way as we can. let me move from there, Paige, because I want to touch on something too. When you talk about, and you've talked about this, being a sustainable eco activist in the environment, because it is essential now. We know that the climate is suffering, animals are suffering, humans are suffering because we're not making the changes in that we need to make as rapidly as we probably need to make them. But you've made some points in how you look at the steps of doing that. And one, you start off, of course, with the whole idea of compassion and love. And I want to touch on this in this regard. You'll see a lot of militant factions within the world of veganism, where people are coming from, in a way, a place of hate. They're hating the industries that hurt animals. They're hating the food. They're hating the pharmaceutical. They're coming from a place of hate while we're trying to build a world that is compassionate and loving. So let me ask you, as being as up as you are, as being as effervescent as you are, how does Paige Parsons stay connected with that loving center when you're going up against things that are really reprehensible and atrocious in the sense of how they're establishing violence and death and damage to animals, people, and the environment? What's the way that you use your mindset, your perspective, your perception to embrace a more loving approach to creating a compassionate world?
Whew, that's a great question. And I will say I'm going to lean in on Reverend Michael Bernard Beckwith, who established the Agape Spiritual Center in Los Angeles. Check him out. He's featured in the film The Secret, and he's written multiple books. I discovered him myself. I went my first time 32 years ago, and I brought my husband, and then we just incorporated our whole family. He ended up marrying us 28 years ago.
Cool.
Yeah, Reverend Michael Beckwith.
That's great.
Yeah, so I feel like the principles of love is in all religions. It's a trans-denominational space, so anyone can come and check it out, no matter what your background. So I have found that meditating really does help me to stay centered as well, just some self-care, working out, walking, and I try to take the high road. And I know that sounds difficult in some of the climate that we're dealing with, but sometimes I'll just opt out versus speaking my mind. And but sometimes I'll speak my mind too. Like, I do my best. And I have some Southern roots. I spent a year on a farm in Tennessee when I was 8 years old with my grandparents. And I say that's where I got my foundation of morals and ethics, because after that, I moved into Beverly Hills with a stepfather that my mother married a man for, that was 10 years of my life, and then married her final husband. And they passed around the same time. Which, by the way, I will say catapulted me to get even more active when my stepfather died of heart disease, a sudden heart attack. We were not expecting this at all. When it's sudden, you don't know. And I pressed upon the multitude of green food and plant food that I wanted to bring to the holidays. But I was met with some contention. So we're going to leave that there. And then my mom was also suffering with Alzheimer's, drinking a lot of diet drinks. I will leave it there with that too, not call the brand out. But it was a little late getting her into the space. It had traveled so far, and it's not hereditary, which I've learned now. And that going on a plant-based diet, with the whole foods and plants, no eggs, dairy, no animals, can help you stave off Alzheimer's. There's studies now. That was really good news. Yeah. But I also want to say that getting into action, and Jane Velez Mitchell from Unchained TV really taught me this, because I would call her and be like, how can we even, the billboards, the messaging on the park benches are these juicy dead cows, like sexy eat me. And it's like, no, these are animals. How can we even live in this dystopian, as Claire Mann says, teaches about this dystopian non-vegan world? How? And so I've gone through a lot of ups and downs and roller coasters. I do want to say the plant-based treaty has given me a lot of hope. And I am going to plug this because it's a valuable resource. And you can go onto the plant-based treaty website and get downloads of all kinds of information. I carry this starter guide around with me, and you can sign and endorse the plant-based treaty, which basically vegan, non-vegan, if you want to make changes for a better planet, check it out. I highly recommend, because you will find there are actionables that plant-based treaty, the organizers, are taking for a more sustainable planet. Like West Hollywood, by the way, just decided to bring more plant-based items on their menus at all their events that they're going to be having in the future. That's amazing. And
Yeah,
like
that's beautiful.
the city of Edinburgh signed and endorsed the plant-based treaty to have more plant-based items and more restaurants, and to support more plant-based foods available for people. So I just want to say, so for me, Jane really did teach me this, because there were dark days, or, like days that were like sad and oh my gosh. And when something comes over, because I'm part of a lot of group messaging, and it's like yesterday, they just saved all these ducks that were becoming this delicacy of when they serve it up, it's this egg. And if it gets past that fertilization, and the restaurants don't want them anymore. And then what happens to those little future ducklings? Oh, well, they just kill them. So there's a man named Howard who rescued like 400. It was on the local news. And, 400 ducklings that now he's saving, that
Right.
are alive. And you go, what? People are eating these? What? It's crazy. So taking action towards change and system change, that's important.
Yeah, so we've been talking about, becoming a sustainable kind of eco advocate, so to speak, and we were talking about animal protection and animal activism. Let me ask you a question. When you're eating and living vegan, you obviously are taking a stand in animal activism just by eating and living that way. Do you feel that that's enough? I mean, you've been at vigils. You've talked about how you were really so affected by the LA Animal Save vigil with looking in pigs' eyes, and you have these kinds of things going on, and you're very active that way in a community sense. If someone can't or wants to tap into that, what's a good way to kind of get that going in somebody's life, so to speak?
Great question. I would say the most important thing is to connect with the other vegans in your community. So one way is to go to the vegan restaurants and just start talking to people, because the vegans hang out at vegan restaurants. They do. So that's one way. When I go to new cities, I do that. The other thing is there is a plethora of amazing organizations to get involved with in your local area, perhaps, or even you could do some clickable activism, meaning you're signing petitions and so forth. So I don't know where there's like a direct hub, but I can tell you, if you go to Unchained TV, there's a spot where it says organizations, and you can look at the ones like there's Switch for Good, Climate Healers, and I'm part of the Climate Healers group, and we lead a convergence, a gathering of the people 4 times a year, and you can just do that virtually wherever you are around the world.
Yeah, we've interviewed Sailesh Rao. I know him very well, so he was was an amazing interview with him.
Amazing.
Too. Yeah, he's
now,
an amazing.
I think I mentioned the plant-based treaty. So go here and find out how you can get involved, because they're starting chapters around the world. And if you're a university student, they're starting chapters on universities. We need students. Another thing that we had talked about briefly is the Vegans of LA Food Bank. And I want to give a shout out to Gwenna Hunter, who started this. So she essentially was approached having a conversation with someone who already has a food bank that's once a week with around 300 to 400 people. And she said, basically, he offered her a day of the month to do all vegan food. So that's already like a way, if you wanted to do food outreach, vegan food outreach, that's a great way. There's also an organization called Godormic, and they are global as well, and they do food outreach. So you kind of pick what inspires you. For me, giving access to vegan food is very important to me. So I do as many events that I can support, bringing food access to people who, are in the food deserts, nutrition deserts, what we learned about in They're Trying to Kill Us, the film. And the other thing is, if you want to get hands-on with animals and help, there are sanctuaries for animals that have been rescued from the food systems, and they are needing of volunteers. They need volunteers to help them, feed the animals, take care of them, raise funds. If you're somebody who knows how to raise money, I think the key is finding out what your skill set is, and then going out there and finding an organization or a group or starting something. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. For instance, the food bank that Gwenna Hunter, that's something that you want to know how to do it, reach out, because we will help you sort out what that looks like and how to go about that. It's not like you have to do something brand new per se. I haven't mentioned this, but I am doing something that's brand new to me. I'm directing a short film. And listen, I'm leaning in on so many different people, asking lots of questions and getting lots of, input. And then I have an idea, and I'm writing the treatment, and, going from there. I have 4 features of young people that are changing the world through their food and their action and their activism for a healthier planet. So basically that's what the film is about.
I don't think people sometimes understand how important food accessibility is. I mean, they don't realize we live in a country where there are somewhere in the range of 50 billion starving people, and 10 to 15 billion of them are children. And the fact of the matter is that every day, 10,000 children die on this planet from starvation, food insecurity. So even in a country like ours, which is not considered a third world country, we've got disenfranchised communities where people can't really access that food. So talk about how that food bank distributes to that population of people. How are we sure that food is getting to where it needs to get to? Let's talk about that.
So real quick, again, it's Vegans of Los Angeles, and here's how this works. It is it's folks who are paycheck to paycheck. They need a grocery boost. Groceries are expensive, and they maybe are houseless. A lot of them do have access to a refrigerator. A lot of them ride their bikes in and their bikes out. And basically, we line up as volunteers. We have the produce, nuts, grains, seeds, and vegan food that has been donated on one side. People line up and they walk through, very organized, around 300 to 400 people. And they basically are filling their grocery bags. They're filling their box. So I say, would you like broccoli or cauliflower? And they go, yes, both. And I put it in their bag, and then they move to the next. So it's an assembly line of a food
Beautiful.
Grocery outlet, and they go home with what they want. So if they don't want peas or maybe eggplant because they're not sure how to cook it, or whatever, then that's up to them. So it's really a choice by choice. Now we only have so much to give out. So I mean, I would love to just pile them with everything, but it is like you get 4 oranges and a big head of gorgeous kale, organics. Everybody deserves to have healthy food access. We just don't have that around the world. So how can those of us that do have access, that do have resources, that do have skills, provide for those that don't? And that is really my mission. My mission is to bring the accessibility to folks that don't have it, because that is a big deal. And if I can do it, so one of the other things I do is I'm like an Uber driver or Lyft driver for a cause through Support and Feed. So Support and Feed is a global organization that provides prepared vegan meals from vegan restaurants, or restaurants that have vegan meals. And then I go pick them up, myself and other volunteers, and bring it to the location they've worked out, like a Boys and Girls Club with after school program for children who are hungry, right? Or it's like their snack, it's their meal. And so I started doing that about 6 months ago. It's incredibly rewarding. I live kind of an hour to an hour and a half away from sort of like where things are happening. So it is a big time commitment. However, I feel like I can do this, like there's a day I can commit. I was doing it once a week, and now I'm down to maybe once a month because I've got a lot of other projects happening. So, that's something people can do too, is reach out to support and feed on their Instagram, go find their content. They have some really cool things. Now, Maggie Baird started it. Billie Eilish and Phineas's mom, that's who it is, during the lockdown in Los Angeles, she was going to restaurants and seeing the vegan restaurants and seeing that there weren't a lot of people in there. Obviously, we weren't allowed to, and ordering food. And then she saw people who were on the streets hungry. So she said, I'm going to order these meals, with her whole family, and we're going to deliver these meals, hot meals, prepared meals, etc. And that's how it all started. And now it's in its third year. So support and feed.
And I know you've been very active in this idea of understanding the importance of soil and composting. And this has been a kind of a dance you've been involved in for quite some time. So talk about the importance of that and how people can funnel their compostable, substances that they're consuming, and how we could feed the healthy soil on this planet. Talk a little bit about that if you can, please.
Okay. I think the key is to get our food scraps out of the trash landfill situation. So that's simply put. That does not mean you're going to start a whole soil creation. Okay. Right. What we're asking people to do, because in California, it's the law. And in certain countries, it's a law. And so we're figuring out how to create systems that work. So in the state of California, you can take any food scraps that you have and put it into our green bin that gets picked up by Waste Management. And then they distribute it into a place that they're making soil. There's also places here in the state of California where you can deliver food scraps that maybe you put into a Ziploc bag in the refrigerator, frozen, bring it out, or in fridge, and then deliver it. And there's systems that are working like LA Compostable, and they're turning it into soil. So that's probably the easiest thing. Now, why do we want to do this? Okay, this is not a new concept. However, if you think about the billions of people on the planet that are eating food and they cut off the top of the stems and they're not eating the orange peels with banana peels, right? All of that's getting stuck into the landfill next to a dirty diaper and maybe a couch cover. And what happens is methane is created. We've got to reduce our methane, y'all. Obviously, planting more trees to create carbon, sure. But in the meantime, what can you and I, because we eat every day. We're eating. A lot of people are cooking at home, right? So you have leftovers, so there's lots of ways that we can be part of the solution to closing the loop of eating food, putting it back into a system that becomes creatable for soil that then is healthy, nutritious, nutrient dense, that can be put back into a system where gardening is happening. On a big scale, this is what's turning into fertilizer, what's turning into growth foundations. So I just say, simply put, please take your food scraps out of the trash. There's so much information at our fingertips, y'all. You could always reach out to me. I can help you. I've helped people set up systems for themselves. Simply put, somebody said, well, just spell it out for me. I said, can you freeze them? Yes. Now where can you take them? I can take them to the park, dig a hole, and bury them. Perfect. That's back into the soil. Not everybody's going to do that.
No, right?
Not everybody has freezer space. Okay, but what could you do? What could you physically do? Because we do collect a lot of food scraps. So this is a way to close the loop and create a closed loop, amazing, hot for compost option to make more soil for our beautiful planet that is suffering. We just had the hottest day in record time just a few days ago, y'all. This is astonishing, the amount of pressure that we're putting on our planet. We're 8 billion human beings, plus there's the animals that we're raising for food. We're taxing our environment, our Mother Earth, our beautiful planet so hard. What can we do? That's what I ask myself constantly. What can I do, and how can I get this information out to people? Yeah.
And when we talk about that animal activism, I want to touch on one thing that's not spoken about enough. And I know it's something that has been part of your work and your life, and it's certainly been an interest to me. And that is the fact that in addition to food, we're dealing with about 140 million tons of animal parts used for clothing, cosmetics, and all these accessories in our culture. That's 280 billion pounds of animal parts annually. And I think too often people don't even think about that aspect of this entire vegan philosophy and eco activism. So can you, because I know you're connected with LA Fur and and I know this has been something that you have given a lot of thought to, as I have. Can you share the importance of really paying attention and being conscious of that aspect aside from just the abnormal use of food with animal body parts?
Well, I didn't know this, that we got to think a little more discerningly. We have billions of people on the planet. So long gone are the days of the beautiful little sheep that they're shearing very carefully and making mittens and scarves. Because when you walk into a department store or a lot of these retailers, they're selling them by the hundreds, right? Whatever this is. And so those systems are not working anymore. They don't work for this many people on the planet. The other thing that I didn't realize, I thought, well, gosh, they need to do something with the skins of the animals. I didn't even think about it that way. But, I'm eating a hamburger or somebody's eating a hamburger, right? Well, what's going to happen? They're doing a good thing by recycling that, and repurposing. No, so much of the industries, the leather is one of the number one, is a co-product. So they're raising animals to become leather products. So that's astonishing to me. We're actually raising animals to kill them, to use them for their skin and their hair. Yeah. So when I learned about these beautiful little mink, they look like they're white and fluffy. They're so cute that while they're alive, they pull out the longest hairs because they're alive. That's how they get the long hairs from the follicles, and put it on people's eyelashes to make mink eyelashes. Look it up. It's astonishing that we would do that to an animal. Like, what? And this animal's tortured. It does not want its hair pulled out. I mean, we just have to stop and think, how am I extrapolating from this planet, and start being responsible for our actions? And I think people mostly are overwhelmed and, underpaid, overwhelmed, and not sleeping, and just paycheck to paycheck. They're not thinking about these things. So I feel it's our job, once we know the information, to educate people so they can make more informed choices.
It's important to realize, you have to do professional. I got to do dress up. All of my stuff is non-animal based, whether it's belts, shoes, and it's all available now so easily for people to just shift that consciousness into realizing we don't want to feed that part of these industries. 1 billion animals a year being killed, as you said, just for these ancillary accessories, whether it's clothes, upholstery, or whatever. It's absurd. It's unconscionable.
It's overwhelming. Like, I'm actually getting really moved thinking about it, because honestly, I didn't know 9 years ago. I didn't know. And now that I know, it really is my passion, purpose is to get the information out to those that can relate to what I'm saying or will be willing to listen and make a change. Just start somewhere, y'all. That's what I'm saying. Just start somewhere, because if you take that action, said the one person of the billion of people, and then it just keeps going like a ripple effect. The more we can be responsible for our actions, the more we can be mindful about what we're doing. And again, I'm going to use that word extrapolation, because we're extracting from our planet. There's an incredible a series called Extrapolations. It blew my mind. I highly recommend it. I don't know what channel is streaming or whatever. But I was really touched, and I met the one of the writers a couple of times. And I said, this series really engaged me thinking about the future. Thank you, on a whole nother level. So that's what I'm going to give you there. But yeah.
And so as we go through this, what's on the horizon for you, Paige? I mean, you've got so much you're doing. What else is it that you would love to do? Where do you want to focus your attention? What's coming down the pike for you, in addition to all these other incredible things you're participating in?
Well, I'm really excited. We're filming some new cooking segments for Plant-Based in the Burbz that are up on Unchained TV. So that's really exciting. And this film that I'm co-directing with Genesis Butler, who's an incredible youth activist, We're going to be screening it on college campuses around the nation.
Beautiful.
And including it into film festivals. And while we're showing the film, before and after, there's going to be delicious food available for the students, and then booths set up with information that will give, including plant-based treaty, will give these students access to information. I don't know. I went to college, and it was one of the first times that I realized I was putting whatever I wanted from the dorm food and anything else that on my little small budget, a food budget, in my mouth. I had choices. So I could drink what I wanted. I could smoke what I wanted. I could put drugs. I could do anything I wanted without watching my parents watching over me, asking me questions or feeling guilty. I was choosing how I was going to treat my body with what food. Mm-hmm. So food access on the college campuses is important. That's what we're doing with Plant-Based Treaty, is giving more plant-based options on college campuses. That's one of the things in universities around the world. But also, this film is the idea that you have a choice to put in your body, to put in your mind, to put in your spirit, kind of for some of the first time, because they're out on their own, college.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Paige, as we wind this down, do you have any final words or thoughts you'd like to share with the people out here?
Like I was saying earlier, please just take action. If you don't know, ask, look it up. We're here to support you. Those of us that have been active for a while, and it can seem scary at first, or you can actually maybe even have an imposter syndrome. I've never directed a film. I've produced a lot of things. I do a lot of short this and that. Definitely got overwhelmed. I'm not going to lie. And I was like, am I really doing this? I don't even have the financing for it. And I thought, you know what? This film wants to be made through me. So if you feel like you have a tug and a pull and signs that this is your sign coming at you saying, yes, I do want to get active, just reach out. We're here for you. Your entire team, Frank, my entire team, which is me, myself, and I, and then a lot of people that I know. I'm a connector. So I love to connect people together and bring about, change, because we can do it. We can do a lot faster when we're working together, y'all.
Collaboration is definitely the key to all that, for sure. I can't thank my guest, Paige Parsons Roache, enough for being with us today, sharing her enthusiasm, her heart, her insight. And you can see her location, Plant-Based in the Burbz, scrolling across the screen. Please follow her, support what she's doing, become attentive to what's going on, take these steps in your own life to become an activist in your own right. There's everything that we can do individually and collectively to start moving this into a much more loving, compassionate world. And I urge you to do that. Paige, thank you so much. And I want to thank our audience out here for being with us today. Without you, we can't do what we do. And I want to thank you for being part of this really active, healthy community. And on behalf of the National Health Association, I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino, and I look forward to being with you on the next episode of the Health Science Podcast. Paige, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Namaste, vegan. We'll see you next time, y'all. Peace and plants.
You've been listening to the Health Science Podcast, brought to you by the National Health Association. Thank you for joining us today and for your commitment to evidence-based health science that backs a whole food, plant-exclusive lifestyle and contributes to the well-being of all people, animals, and our environment. I'm your host, Dr. Frank Sabatino. Be sure to leave a rating and a review, and we'll see you on the next show.